So in this video, I'm going to be talking about discussing 3 killer backswing movements that could well be stopping you playing your best golf. So this video is all about the backswing, from the setup right through to the top, and we're going to cover 3 things that I see just happening so commonly with the amateur golfers that I coach. And if you can fix these and work at these in your golf game, I'm confident that it will give you better results out of the course. Now, just before we get into the video and get started with that first fault, if you're new to the channel, there is a subscribe button down below. Would love you to be part of the community. It is absolutely free, and I really believe these videos can help you play some better golf. And also, if you haven't already, check out my website. There are some training courses on there, which I know can help you achieve your golfing goals. Right, let's get started with the first fault that I see, and this one is really, really common. The first thing would be in the backswing, a golf club which is open. I always say that club face is king. If we get that club face out of position through the golf swing, it can be really hard to hit good, solid golf shots. You need a super high level of talent, and if you haven't got that, you're going to struggle. As you can imagine, club face open, right-hand side of the golf course is going to get a lot of action. Probably going to lose a lot of golf balls over there. But if you don't want to hit it to the right, you're going to have to start making some other movements in there, over the top, early release, backing up with the body. Those faults that we see in the downswing are very often there because that club face was open during the backswing. So how would we get that club face under control? Well, a club face which would be under control or neutral would be one where at this first parallel position, the club face points a little bit down towards the ground. That's what I'd be looking for. Now notice when I do that, my lead wrist, which is my left wrist, is pretty flat. Now that will depend on the style of grip that you have, but if it's a fairly neutral grip, I'm sure you've all got fantastic grips, that lead wrist will be pretty flat. Notice at address, that isn't flat. There's a little bit of shape in there. There's a little bit of cupping in there. So in that takeaway, I took my lead wrist from a slightly cupped position and I flattened it out. That controls the club face. If I can then maintain that flat wrist, that gives me a really good, solid, strong club face at the top. So what we tend to see with all the best players is they will all generally start with a little bit of shape in that wrist. But when they get to the top of the golf swing, it's very often flat. That's what we want. The amateurs will often start with a bit of a cup, and as they get to the top, it's the same, or in some cases it's got worse. It's actually added, or they have added more cup to that wrist, and that just gets that club face way open. So when we introduce the golf club, watch what happens to my lead palm as I do that. As I open up my hand, it points down towards the ground, but very early in that golf swing, I'm trying to move my palm so it feels a little bit more underneath the golf club. If we can do that, what effectively we've done is we've moved our wrists from what we can call a setup condition, and we've moved them already into something that will be closer to a impact condition. This is where the hands need to be at impact. Notice how I'm able to rotate back to the ball and get some really nice, what would look like good impact conditions there. So it's really important that we get that club face controlled really early by flattening out this wrist and getting that club face down towards the golf ball. How would you hit golf balls? Well, pretty simply, you do that. You might want to tee the ball up. I haven't here, but all I would do is I'd get myself set up. I'd take my lead wrist from this cup position, move it to a flatter position. There's my checkpoints. And then you can go and hit the ball. That ball has gone left. Not a great shot, but that club face was certainly not open because I controlled it early. So the first backswing killer move is a club face which is far too open. Let's get it controlled really early in that takeaway. Okay, second thing, and again, we're looking at what we see in the best players versus what we see in the amateur game. A really common problem, and one that's maybe not talked about as much as it could be, is the trail arm. That's my right arm at the top of the backswing for the amateurs, getting far too flexed or far too narrow. Makes it very difficult to do the things on the downswing we want to do. We often find that golfer wants to then lengthen that arm out, and we start to see this kind of casting motion. The best players will keep some really nice width in that right arm, which actually allows them, if they want to, narrow it a little bit, get a little bit more speed in that downswing, a little bit more efficiency. So if the trail arm in the amateur game or amateur golfers is often far too bent, that's great, but we need to know why. Why is it too bent? Well, it all really comes down to the move away from the golf ball and what the arms and the body do. Let me give you a little demonstration. I'm going to take my address to this golf ball, I'm going to place the grip end of the club into about my belly button, and I'm going to take my right arm and I'm going to extend it down the golf club. And that will be pretty much my normal setup. My trail arm is not locked, there's a tiny bit of flex in it, but effectively it's pretty extended. Watch what happens if I don't move my shoulders. I'm not going to move my legs, I'm not going to move my hips, I'm not going to move any part of my body really. I'm just going to use my hand, I'm going to try and move that club around as if I was making a backswing. Well, if I do that, straight away you can see what happens. As that club head tries to move around my body, my trail arm just has to flex. There's just no other option for it to do anything. It has to start and just move in this position. So this is my early move away from the golf ball. I'm a golfer who doesn't really engage the body. I'm a golfer who likes to sort of swing the arms around. It's almost going to be impossible for me to keep that right arm extended. It's always going to have this excessive flex, and when we get to the top we often get this really narrow position, which many of you will have seen on camera, and then from there it's common to then throw that club away and really struggle. Watch what happens if we change that. Take that same address position, but this time I'm going to focus very much on moving my upper body, allowing my lower body to move and rotate, and as I do that, well, straight away you can see I'm able to keep that trail arm much straighter. Now if I was to extend the golf club and place it into my hands, I've got my club, you know, certainly past that takeaway position, but I've managed to keep some width in that trail arm. Now from that position, absolutely it's going to have some bend and some flex, but there's a greater chance following that early move away that I'm going to have my right arm much wider at the top. We know that if we can get the hands to travel further, we can hit the ball further. So if my hands are traveling like this versus my hands traveling like this, that second movement is way more efficient. It's going to help me generate far more speed and far more power. So that's a great little exercise. We would take an address, club goes into my belly button, I'm going to place both hands on the club this time, but I'm going to work on moving my body away to keep my arms extended. That's the feeling I want. Now as I wind up to the top, I can really feel like I'm pushing my right hand away from my right shoulder, and that's a great way for me to get some width. The key message here is if your right arm is flexing too much, it's very often the result of the body not working well enough early on. We've got to get that body engaged really early to keep some nice width in that takeaway. That's the key to keeping that trail arm a little bit more extended. The drill for that, well, you can do the one we've just done where the club goes in your belly button, or we can do something which is quite similar to the first little exercise. We could work away, and you could absolutely put the two together. You could make sure that club face is pointing down, wrist is flat, trail arm is extended, and then from there, we can go ahead and see if we can hit one a little bit straighter than that first attempt. Fault number 3, tough one to see. And that's why this one is often not picked up when the people that I coach often look at their own golf swings through cameras and videos. They don't see this. And it's a late weight shift or pressure shift to the trail side. Let's look at what we see in the best players. We see with the best players that they start, let's say 50-50. They might be a little bit more on the lead side, but about 50-50. When they get their lead arm to around about level with the ground, that's the point in their backswing where most of their pressure has already moved into that trail leg. By left arm parallel, it's already moved there. As they're moving then up to the top, they're actually starting to shift a little bit more onto their lead side. So when they get to the top of their golf swing, and top of their golf swing, we'll call that as when the club actually stops moving, they're not on their right side. They've actually begun to move to their left side. So an earlier shift to your trail side enables you to make an earlier shift to your lead side. This is what I see from the amateurs. And we can link this to that second point. I often see the arms moving independently, getting very narrow. That means that there's not a lot of engagement in the body, there's no weight shift. And as they get towards the second part of their backswing, they then start to search for that feeling of, I need to get weight onto this trail side. We can see that turns into a bit of a sway. And then they get to the top of their swing and the weight is there. So it has shifted, it's moved to that trail side, but it's late. And then from here, suddenly they're about to start their downswing, and suddenly the weight's in the wrong place, they can't get onto that lead side. When they do try and bump their hips, it forces the shoulder up and their head back, all sorts of issues. And these golfers often explain that they can't get to their lead side. They don't feel they finished their golf swing on their lead side, which is true, but it's actually they didn't shift onto their trail side early enough. So here's a great little exercise. And in order to get to your trail side earlier, we're actually going to get you to think a little bit about your lead side. So, a reference point, I've got my alignment sticks here, around about a width of my hand outside my lead leg. And what I want you to try and do is very much feel like you go into your right side early, but by the time your club finishes its backswing, you feel like you've already started to move your hips closer to this reference point. Golf bag, alignment sticks, whatever you can create. So I'm trying to go early into my right side, and then that allows me to go more into my left side. Got some little animals running across there, I'm not sure if you can see those. Wait for them to go before I hit my shot. So we're going early into the right side and then early into that left side. What we don't want is to go late into that trail side and then really struggle to get to that alignment stick. So when I'm over this ball, my thought process is, can I get to that left reference point a little bit earlier in my downswing? And if you do that, you better strike it better. You better get the ball followed by the turf. You better get that compression that everybody wants. You better get that ball flight that everybody wants. That strike that you're after. And it's because you got to your trail side earlier, which means that you can get to your lead side earlier. And that's the key message there. Thanks for watching. Usual stuff is down below. Hope to see you back here again soon for a future video.